Hi everyone, this is Jonathan with Underpromoted, and today I'm really excited to talk with Jovanka Houska. I think, well, she's obviously a strong player in her own right, international master, women grandmaster, 9 times British chess champion, but she's probably more well known for all her commentating that she's done, as well as a couple of chess books she's written. So, really happy not only to share those accomplishments, but also more of her thoughts today. So, thanks for joining us, Yovi.
Thank you, Jonathan, for having me. I mean, it's such a pleasure to be here on this podcast, Under Promoted. I love the name, by the way. So I am very excited to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you've worked so long in the chess world doing so many different things. There's a lot of insights you can share. And normally when you're commentating, um, it's more about highlighting other people. So I thought it's be really nice to hear more just about you and what you thought. So I think my first question is just since you first commentated in Gibraltar back in 2017, I think, chess has come a long way. We've tried different tournament structures, different content ideas, different ways of engaging with fans. What do you think are some of the main breakthroughs we've had, things we figured out about how to make chess a better source of entertainment? And what are some things that are still hard that maybe we haven't figured out yet?
Yeah, so it's been an exciting time. Like when I first did commentary, as you mentioned, back in 2017, it was very much all about the games. We were very much about just analyzing and just using descriptive notation, just getting out there and just trying to get into the intricacies of the position. And now there's been a big swing into actually developing the characters and also moving away from all that heavy analysis and into just explaining the position and the concepts in this very basic way. And that's been pretty exciting. So there have been different kind of incorporations of chess. And one of the things that I would say is that it's a pleasure to see how chess has developed and how, we have all these experiments. We've had chess in very much an esports dynamics, just pumping up the crowd, full of excitement and heading in that direction. And I do think that chess is a flexible beast, basically, and that can be shown to the world in many different versions. And one of the things that I particularly liked working is in Armageddon chess, because that one was just fast-paced, furious chess at its most extreme, almost felt like a street fight at times. And I can remember doing commentary and by the end being completely breathless because it was so full of excitement. And I've loved seeing chess in that way. And now, I mean, very recently, I've been thinking a lot about how to even expand this concept of chess. We've seen it very much as a sport, as an e-sport, but I mean, we haven't really developed too much about how it can be a social activity, how it can be a pastime. By social activity, I really mean how it can be utilized in a very informal setting. You and your friends talking about the game and just sharing your thoughts. And I did see really recently an episode of the new BBC series Chess Masters the Endgame, and what struck me about that one is that they went completely in a different direction of chess as being a sport. They went for it being a storytelling capability, and it was all about the players and just getting to know them and also understanding the dilemmas that they have on the board. And there was a beautiful scene just now in episode 3 where you see Lula, the famous chess streamer, and she has to pick a partner who she's going to partner up in a team chess. And she's thinking, do I choose the strongest player who I will lift into the semis, or do I actually choose a weaker player? In the case, if we lose, then I will have to face them in the eliminator. And that was a really nice decision, actually. And we could kind of see the quandary that she was in. And there were also some beautiful chess puzzles that were, I know David Howell set them. And what I liked about them is that they were very much relevant for everyone to see. So I know I'm jumping around a bit, but the reason I kind of mentioned this is it does bring me back to some of the efforts that myself and my co-author of the mating game, James Essinger, back in 2008, we were looking at actually how to incorporate chess not just as its own being, but actually part of mind games, and this whole concept of how we could actually compare the mind of a chess player with perhaps the mind of a taxi driver, and using chess as that medium to explore the different ways that chess can help us. And that's something that I personally would love to kind of step into that direction. And I know in our early conversations, I was telling you that I've got a lot of free time at the minute. And so I was looking at exploring, chess, how we can use chess as a memory tool, how we can use those memory tools to, it just diversify chess even further. And it's a journey. And what I really like about chess as a sport, as a hobby, as a pastime, as anything you want to call it, is that it's very flexible. And the biggest challenge, and I do think that we have overcome it somewhat, is this whole knowledge gap that you have with someone who doesn't play chess and with someone who does. Because somehow or other, in whatever medium you have to choose, you have to break down some quite difficult concepts into something very, very simple and easy to grasp. And that can be challenging, but I do think that we are getting a lid on that particular problem. And working on the Champions Chess Tour, rather, it was a big experience for me because we weren't allowed to use coordinates there. And we were, I'm kind of exaggerating. We were allowed, but they were like, no long lines, please, because people won't understand them. And it did kind of change the way that we looked at chess. And I think if we can kind of develop that further and have many different avenues, I do think that we can look to a very promising future. And you can see the fact that chess is on the BBC, is now part of the esports, and you have lots and lots of tournaments happening and lots of exciting new sponsors as well. Can you believe the World Championship match was one of the sponsors brought on by the Singaporean Chess Federation and FIDE because Google. That's just incredible.
Right. Yeah, going back to what you said about the knowledge gap being one of the big problems, what do you think are the biggest problems that are still out there? Maybe the knowledge gap is one of them, but what are the problems?
Well, I do feel that when it comes to chess and the problems, there's a few things that kind of spring to mind. First up, I do think that we could be a little bit more inclusive as a community. I do think a real effort needs to be brought into, women, even juniors in chess, and also the LGBTQ. Sorry if I got that one wrong. I do think as a community we can be a little bit more welcoming and accepting, and just somehow being more appealing to that community. I do feel that we are, as a whole, a little bit too introverted with the way that we play chess. And this was something I'd never even thought about until I asked my sisters. I have two younger sisters who played chess, and I asked them, why did you give up? What was it about chess that didn't appeal to you? Because they seemed to have a lot of fun when we were playing Blitz, and they said that they love Blitz. They love the social events at the clubs. They just didn't enjoy competing because it was hours on hours of silence, and they wanted to make friends. And unfortunately, tournament competition didn't really appeal to that. And I know one other thing that does worry me a little bit, especially when it comes to the realm of classical chess and chess learning, is that I do feel it's too time demanding, because a classical chess match or round can go on for six hours easily. And that's a big ask, to have someone stay with you on that journey for a long, long time. And it's also really unpredictable. You can't really guarantee where the action is going to be. It could be on move 10. It could be all the way down on move 80. And that's something that I think is going to be problematic, actually, when it comes to coverage. However you broadcast it.
So, and you are, I guess it's only a few days away, but you will be covering the Women's World Championship, right?
Yes, I will be covering the Women's World Championship between Ju Wenjun, reigning four-time Women's World Champion, and Tan Zhongyi, who was the world champion, incidentally, in 2017, until she lost the title to Ju Wenjun. So it's, for me, it's super exciting, will Tan Zhongyi get her revenge? Her ascendant has been actually quite incredible. I did commentary on the Cairns Cup for the St. Louis Chess Club last year, where we saw Tan in action, and she can really go into beast mode. And what I like about all the World Championship matches, actually, we have a clash of styles. And somehow or other, that's really exciting when you have someone who's quite positional in nature fighting against someone who just wants to steer the game into dynamic play. I like that.
Yeah. It's better to explain that story that we can see, right? One other thing, so you mentioned Armageddon, but there's a lot of other projects that you've worked on. I'll just list some of them. I mean, with Chess24, there was Banter Blitz. You did a series of interviews with players like Liam Le or Shakriar, and unfortunately, I think it's gone now. I don't know where you can find it. You've streamed for Kasparov Chess, done some vlogs for Forward Chess, and obviously you've commented a lot. And, you know, most of these probably are projects that have ended now. A few are kind of maybe ongoing. But out of all of those, did you have any favorites or any ones that you thought, wow, this is a really good idea, I wish it kept going? How do you feel looking back at all of those different attempts in the chess world?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have to say, all of the projects that I've done are very, very dear to me. I've really been blessed in who I've managed to work with, because I can tell you, all these companies, chess.com, Chess24, Play Magnus, Kasparov Chess, Forward Chess, they're absolutely been wonderful, wonderful to me. And they provided me with opportunities that I just never dreamed I could do, to be honest. I do remember when Forward Chess approached me out of the blue. They were like, "Hey, we'd like you to do some YouTube videos." I was like, "Really? Me?" I'm just a part-time commentator, because at that time I really was. I was just doing Gibraltar and maybe the odd St. Louis Chess Club tournament. But I thought, wow, I have to prepare for this. I will be showing who I am, and it was really enjoyable. I mean, because I really put a lot of effort into it. I made those vlogs quite personal, because it was all about my chess journey, and actually inspired me to play better chess, because I would be reading a whole ton of books and thinking about content all the time. And I really felt when I sat down to play a game of chess that I had a whole crew behind me that wanted to do well. And I do feel like it's no coincidence that actually I got to some of my highest ratings at that time. So that was, on a personal level, really, really a big learning curve for me. And the one that really scared me the most was doing those chess talks where, I was like, wow, I've got to interview these incredible players, and I've got to ask them all these questions, and I've got to get them to open up. And that's something that I would like to explore a little bit further. I am sad that they finished, because actually I felt at times, I still find interviewing very scary. But I've started to realize that it's less about me as a person and more about the interviewee, and just trying to get them to open up and share their life stories, because that's one of the most important things in chess, is that if you can get someone to tell you the difficulties that they faced and make them a little bit more relatable, then I do think that that's a way to open up some future fans. So I really did enjoy getting to know the players. And one of my favorite interviews ever was with Shakriar Mamajarov, because I never knew his background. I never knew how much hard work he put into the game, how much of it, came from himself as a youngster, how he took it upon himself to get up early, go to the park, because there was his flat was just simply too small for him to study. And then, he took himself from 2200 all the way up to the world's top, and he told some funny stories along the way. And I also got to say that Henrik Carlson was also an incredible person to interview, and how he took his approach to learning and had a very laissez-faire approach with his son, very supportive, and not in the way that you'd think of as you think of a normal chess parent to act. And that for me was pretty inspiring. So I really, and again, you mentioned Kasparov Chess, Chess.com, the Champions Chess Tour. I mean, they've all been absolutely wonderful, wonderful experiences. And I do wish that I was kind of continuing them more, to be honest. But sadly, sadly, some of them have come to an end. And yeah, and I'm still really excited to do commentary for chess.com, because one of the things about them is that they do push you. They're not afraid to give you feedback, and they're wonderful giving me especially some opportunities just to commentate, and they're very, very supportive. So I've got to say that when it comes to employment possibilities, the St. Louis Chess Club, I mean, chess.com, I mean, they've all been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. On the interview series you said you did with, with Chess24, with Henrik and Shakuyar, yeah, why don't you think we do that? Like, I don't think it's very common in the chess world. The most popular content seems to be about maybe a few top chess players like Magnus Hikaru, a few of the male players, some content creators, and I think we have tried as the chess world to make different chess players more popular. We've done Banter Blitz. Even I found some old Banter Blitz videos in Chinese with Chinese players. Chess.com, they do features sometimes where they have a few top players like, okay, try eat this Norwegian food, or try to solve this endgame composition. They did even a little documentary about Wesley So. But I think it seems like a really good idea to make all these chess players more human, to make them more, to let us see them as personalities, not just as, 2700 engine. But we're still here in a pretty similar place maybe to where we were a few years ago. So why don't you think that's something that's taken off?
I do think it has taken off, but the problem is that we're limited to the famous chess players. And this is one of the things, because they're playing in those events, and we've kind of put the onus on the private companies to be the ones to develop the personality, so to speak, and to do the interviews, to invest the time and the resources in bringing out these players. And I think one of the reasons why it hasn't kind of caught on for other players is because I do think that perhaps federations haven't really taken on the onus of doing this. They haven't really kind of opened the doors, the publicity doors, to their players. And a lot of it can be done through connections. A lot of it can be done through publicity, just employing the right people. Or if you don't even have money, just doing press releases, because there are some magnificent stories out there. I mean, one of my favorite events is the Olympiad. And
Right.
the reason the Olympiad I find is so good is because there's so many personalities, so many people out there playing this incredible event, and they have brilliant stories to tell. So you have Iman Sawan is her name, the young Palestinian girl, and she really captured everyone's hearts and imaginations at the Olympiad. When she won all her games, and we were like, will she get the board one? And I kid you not, as a team, as the English team, we were following her progress, and we were all cheering her on. And then Maurice Ashley introduced me to Deborah Quickpen and told me the story about how they came late. They didn't have enough players on their team, so they had to mesh the open team and the women's team, and she was doing fantastically well. We had Budana, at that time, she was 9 years old, playing for the England team. And there was so many fantastic personalities. And I just think with a little bit of effort and a little bit of publicity and a little bit of help from federations, and like I said, a lot of it is demanding on your time, but not necessarily in terms of financial resources. The more stories that are told, the better, in my opinion, because, I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I want to be hearing about the person who is, suffering from illness and managing to, despite all that, wake up in the morning, get to the chessboard, give it their all. I want to know that story. I want to, learn from what they're doing and just be a better person because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even like just thinking of the top 100 or top 50 players, there's a lot of players that do play in like the invitationals. They're not just maybe the strongest player in their federation, but in the world. And I think like an important experience for me was going to the candidates in Toronto, and I saw all these, the 8 women players, and then I tried to look afterwards to see if there were interviews about them, and there weren't really. And so I do feel like, yeah, even these top players somehow we're missing them. So if you ever want to restart your interview channel, I'll give you my
Yeah.
name to use under promoted. I'll change it to something else. Um, you can go with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, Jonathan. Like, so many of them have stories. Like Vaishali, Vaishali and Prague, they come from very, very humble means, and and they really had to fight to get to get coaching. And I know Ramesh was very generous with his time there, with them, helping them. And I want to hear about that story. I mean, I love that kind of concept. And I also want to know just about, I'm also kind of curious as well as a chess player, like what they're doing in terms of preparation. What was their childhood like? What was their origin story? I mean, was it all natural to them? Did they have to fight it out? Did they have to fight with their federation? Like right now, I'm reading Susan Polgar's book, Rebel Queen, which is absolutely fantastic, highly recommended. And I was actually shocked at how much work they put in as a family on chess. And it was pretty big. I just didn't think it was literally doing chess for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more I'm learning about these chess players, it does seem like, I mean, there are cases where there's no family support, but then a lot of cases it does seem like they had a lot of support, and that's why, their parent, their dad, or someone was their coach, or was their tournament organizer, all those things.
You're completely right. I mean, also, it's not just for me. I mean, I'm sure there are parents out there in similar situations. My father, well, we grew up in, myself, I grew up in a very humble background. And my dad was pumping every single penny he could into our chess career. And we weren't really studying too much, but we were learning by playing because he literally said yes to everything. And yeah, I remember doing my homework at the board. I'm sure that was off-putting. But I mean, I know that he was taking guidance from Laszlo Polgar. I mean, that was his inspiration, and it was his dream that every one of his children would be out there being chess superstars. I mean, it didn't quite happen, but I know that he really would have appreciated the guidance. And I also think that we shouldn't just limit ourselves to the chessboard. I don't think we should just be insular. I mean, I was involved. I don't want to overplay like how much I was involved, but I was involved in getting some guidance for parents. For English parents, and it was interesting because we had someone from an esports background giving tips on just study and memorizing, learning techniques that they had from esports. We had a professional tennis psychologist, well, not sports psychologist, working with young tennis players, and they were bringing different views, everything from these particular professions into the chess world and giving guidance like that. So I do think that, when you develop the personalities, people immediately can relate to them, and they can actually use that knowledge to kind of draw from other sports, other professions, other arts, and they can use those kind of just signs and tips and just kind of help the chess world.
Yeah. Well, one more question about the chess world. I think a few years ago in 2021, someone was asking you if there's anything you can change or improve about the chess world, what would you do? And you said you think it would be great if the chess world hired more professionals, like professional fundraisers, professional marketers. So now it's 2025. How do you think that's gone? How would you assess the progress? And if you had to answer the question again, what would be the change or the improvement you would make?
Yeah, the answer to that question was actually very much based on one of my friends who is a professional fundraiser, and she was telling me all about the efforts that they did with Sussex Junior Chess Club, I think it's called. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but they had all sorts of really interesting ways of raising money. And they were bringing in ideas from completely different areas in life. Like, for instance, the chess world is very well connected. You know, all have contacts in high places, and they were using those contacts, you know, just to say, hey, let's rifle off. No, let's hold a raffle, and one of the prizes is work experience at this company. And they were raising money like that, and they were saying, hey, you know, the English Chess Federation doesn't have a lot of money, but it does have a lot of access to like a database of juniors, and this kind of information is particularly valuable to certain companies. I mean, she had ideas of the English juniors kind of challenging investment bankers, you know. I mean, and it was she was thinking of things that I would never ever have thought of, and I thought that's just absolutely fascinating to have someone professional assist chess in that way. So I do think we should be having professional fundraisers, and they're able to think outside of the box. They're able to understand what kind of assets we have as a community, what kind of marketing value there is. And the only problem is that it does cost money. And and that's one of the problems, especially in certain countries. Like I grew up in England, and the English Chess Federation, you know, it did have the support of the government, and then we lost it, and unfortunately it's very, very difficult when you don't have money. But I still stand by that. I still stand by the idea that the chess world needs to be a bit more open to having people from other communities come in and share their talents and abilities. But I also think that, okay, if you're not able to fundraise, then you can assist the community in other ways. And one of them that I would point is just don't get in the way of your players. That's one very, very important thing. And I would also say that introduce and make a big deal of your players as well. So by introduce, I mean, there are a lot of social functions. I mean, the chess world is very good at having big dinners. I mean, just being invited to certain things in certain places. And I think it's important for people who are well connected to say, hey, meet this young talent that we have in our country. And you can, you know, if they don't have so much money, I mean, you can give them advice on how they can present themselves and how they can also sell their abilities. And I think these kind of things, they really, really help a lot, because just opening doors for people as opposed to slamming them, then I think that is the way forward. So yeah, I still stand by the statement in summary. And I do think that okay, we can do a little bit more for people.
Yeah, I think it is hard because chess, you know, the reason people join the chess world and the reason people do well in it, it's like they're very good at studying or practicing or focusing on playing chess. And then maybe some people who could be professional chess players, they decide to be an organizer instead or something related to that. But then those good qualities and character traits don't necessarily transfer to everything else you need to do. But it is hard to entice someone who has maybe the professional background in fundraising or something else to come into the chess world. I think I was talking with Kevin Go, who helped organize a World Championship in Singapore, and he was saying, you know, most of these sponsorships, it's nice if there's someone in the company who loves chess. But then it's kind of hard to convince people, if there's not that person, why they should sponsor chess. So it's maybe we can add that to the knowledge gap, like it's a challenge.
I also do think that it's very important to have in the community those people who can sweet talk anyone. My professional fundraiser friend was one of those. You know, she would just work the room, and she would have all these executives just kind of looking at her in complete admiration and saying, yes, we'll be involved with that. So I think that's very, very important to have something like that. And I agree with Kevin. It really helps when you have people who are interested in the game. And I do think that if you have someone very passionate about the subject and is able to transfer that love for the game, that people will be curious and the people will be interested in the possibilities. I just think a lot of it is, well, not a lot of it, but maybe I'm kind of being a bit broad
Now we're
here.
getting to the
But
good stuff.
no, I just think that sometimes we have some brilliant people working in chess. Really, don't get me wrong, but maybe we're not diverse enough in the skill set that we have.
Well, even an example like of sweet talking. Like sweet talking is totally unnecessary in playing chess because it's a game with perfect information. Everything can be refuted. It's objective, and you don't need to persuade anyone. Like you just say, okay, this calculation, this variation, it works or it doesn't. And so we don't think in those terms. Like when you negotiate over the chessboard, there's logic, and someone's right and someone's wrong, and everyone should be able to agree at the end of the day. But chess is extremely unique that it's like that, and the rest of life, not only marketing but the rest of life in general, it's not a matter of, oh, I'm right and you're wrong and I can prove it to you. So it is the case that there are a lot of skills that help us get better in chess, but there's a separate set of skills maybe that we need.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Actually, one of the downsides of being a chess player is that we get very stubborn about what we see as the right way or the right points. And this is why I do feel that sometimes there's a lot of conflicts on Twitters because, oh, sorry, X, because you see one chess player, I mean, regardless of their rating, they'll come in with their view is correct and another one go, well, no, but my friend, you are wrong. This is the reason why you are wrong. And I'm going to lay out the facts why. And you think, actually, rewind. You're never going to convince someone by doing that. You're never going to sweeten them to your point of view if you just go, no, it's incorrect. And these are the reasons why. Let's be completely objective. So like you say, life is a negotiation, and it's very important to have people who understand that and who can understand selling. They can understand this whole concept of give and take. So yeah, I do think that the more people that are interested in the game, the more that we'll able to, we'll have a bigger pool to choose from.
Yeah. Well, on social media, I mean, I think it's hard to avoid the topic because it's a big part of how we function as I guess, a community, right? Because maybe it's hard so you can't go to a tournament in Europe or in Asia. You're just at home wherever you are, and so you engage through social media. But there is a lot of, I guess what I'd say is noxious talk on the internet. People complaining or sniping at other people. And I know you've mentioned in other interviews that you've had some negative talk in your life. It could be other players when you're coming up saying, oh, like, you're not good, or why are you playing like this? It could be, someone like your English teacher saying there are people who can write and, that you're not one of them. So how do you deal with and think about the state of chess social media?
Yes. Okay, so the thing is, I gotta also say is that to every negative comment, I've had a lot of positive support. And the thing is, it's easier to take to heart the negative comments. They, for some reason, they land, whereas the positive ones, you just go, well, okay, thank you. And they kind of fly off into the air, and then, you don't really actually appreciate that. Actually, that was someone saying something really, really nice to you, and you should just accept all of that. But there are a few things that I find very, very funny when it comes to criticism of certain things. Like, for instance, when people criticize streamers, or they criticize broadcasts. I mean, the thing is, this coverage is provided for free. And, there are other people devoting their time, their resources, to providing a service which we are enjoying for free. So does that give you the right to kind of put your negative idea into the atmosphere? I mean, just turn, just go onto a different web page and enjoy that. You don't have to. You don't have to just type your negative comments. So I always find that a little bit surprising, and it's very sad actually when that happens. And I never, the public criticism I don't take to heart, because it's just designed to bring someone down. But if someone takes the time to kind of write to me and say, hey, you were making this mistake, then I will actually thank them, because I think I see that as a constructive criticism, that they just want me to do my best, and maybe I'm not even noticing that I'm making a mistake. Like I remember one of my friends said, oh, by the way, you're saying St. Louis, which is the very British way of pronouncing it. It should be St. Louis. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was doing that, but thank you. Or someone said, hey, you were interrupting your co-host a little bit too much. And I was like, oh, thank you. Just thank you for just telling me, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, you don't realize, you just get so caught up in the game and the action that you're not quite realizing that you're doing these things. So I really do appreciate that kind of feedback, where someone you feel genuinely actually wants you to do your best and cares for you. But on the whole, I mean, it can be quite frustrating.
And I do think, those comments, when you said some of your friends, maybe they told you like, oh, this is how you pronounce it, or you're interrupting someone. It's important that doesn't come with a judgment like, oh, you're a lazy commentator, like you didn't do your research, or you're arrogant, you think you're like, sometimes there are those comments, right? It's not just here's a suggestion, but you're lazy, you're greedy, you're whatever, right? And that's not helpful or accurate.
No, it's not accurate as well. No, when you, I mean, even if they say you can't, I have seen some commentary where they were like, oh, you mispronounced certain names, and I wish in some respects, I have a very exotic sounding name, but I can't speak Czech. It's my great grandfather who was from Czech Republic, so I really can't speak any other languages other than English, a little bit of Spanish and Norwegian. And so sometimes I find the whole English language a bit of a stumbling block. Like it's difficult for me to kind of roll my R's. So I try, and sometimes what happens is I practice on certain names. The broadcast comes, and I say it, and I completely make a mess of the name, and I'm just like, what on earth have I said? And then it becomes a bigger and bigger thing, right? Because you're desperately trying to do it in the way that it should be pronounced, and it's just not helping. And and then you get a criticism. What are these players?
Well, you have a lot of practice covering Tan Zhongyi and Ju Wenjun. You can have a lot of practice.
Yeah, I mean, I have gotten criticism on Twitter for mispronouncing Ju Wenjun. Yeah, I mean, so maybe you can give me a masterclass.
It's hard, and I also think it's American English, British English. Like, it's not. We're not trying to pronounce everything in the native language, right? But that's another topic.
True.
One question about your career? I mean, we see you quite often, just on a stream or a commentary, but yeah, how are you thinking about what you want to spend your time on nowadays? Maybe in some sense, I don't know. On the outside, it seems like you're well established. There's more freedom to pick and choose, which I don't know how true that is, but what are things you care about now? What are your priorities, whether in life or in your chess projects? And yeah, how are you looking at this next stage of your career?
Well, it's an interesting point, actually, because I do remember when I made that decision many, many years ago to turn into a chess professional. I only thought of myself as a chess player. I wanted to get the international master title. I was playing for more. I wanted to push myself and see how far I could go. The thing is, unfortunately, chess professionals don't earn so much money unless you're in the world's best. And in order to get to the world's best, you do need support. And I had very limited support in terms of, I mean, people really did their best by me, but it was nothing like you see, like the likes of, like the top players that they need. I mean, if you want to be in the world's best, you have to be training every single hour of the day. You have to have a chess coach. You also have to have maybe more than one coach, and you have to have a team around you. You have to have the ability to go and play tournaments, and all of this unfortunately costs a lot of money, which I had a little bit. I had a little bit of support, but I didn't have enough to. And I wasn't very good at working by myself. So this forced me to diversify. And I started writing articles. I found that I loved that. And then I wrote my first Caracan book. That one took me a long time to write. But I really enjoyed the process that I was doing something for myself. And I've had some incarnations, and chess commentary came along in 2017, and I discovered, I was terrified at first, by the way, Jonathan. I mean, Brian Callahan, the owner of the Caleta Hotel, and the man behind the whole Jib festival, he kind of approached me when I had a weak point, and I just lost a game, and he said, "Hey, why don't you commentate?" And I'm like, "Just say yes." And so I decided, yeah, let's just do it. And I was thinking, oh my goodness me, why have I said yes to this? I'm just an introvert. I'm not an introvert, as I discovered. But I thought I was an introvert. I thought I was quite quiet. And I thought, there's no way that I'm going to enjoy this scary thing. And then I discovered, I absolutely loved it. I was paired up with Simon Williams, one of my best chess friends. And I had a blast, quite frankly. And then it kind of felt like a very new career. And because it was kind of a new thing. I mean, tournaments generally didn't have so much in-house commentary or online remote commentary. So it has felt like, I've been riding a wave for these last few years. And it does feel a little bit uncertain. I don't know whether it will continue like this. So I do tend to say a lot of yes to a lot of things, because I also find it really exciting, and I love to travel. So I've been doing that these last few years, and now I have a kind of a period of quiet, I would say, where I can just rethink what direction I want to head into. I mean, a little part of me still feels like I could do better in my chess. I'm not satisfied with my rating drop. I've been better. And but it's interesting because I have a lot more challenges now as an older person than I had a few years ago. Time and energy is one big factor. I simply don't have the energy. I mean, just now I played in the Isle of Wight. It's a great tournament. I had a lot of fun, and I went into that event thinking, okay, your goal isn't to get an X amount of points. It isn't to get a GM norm. Nothing to do with results. Instead, it's all about focus and attitude. And I decided that I was going to go there and play 5 games where I felt like I had given every single bit of me into playing chess. And I thought I achieved it, actually, because I really felt like I found some great moves. I put a lot of energy into the games. But by rounds 8 and 9, I got to say, I was not at my best. And I was just trying to calculate, and I couldn't calculate. I was just blundering moves in my mind, that is. And I was a little, I think round 8 was a little bit like that because it was a double round, and I think I just reached the end, my breaking point. But and around 9, yeah, I mean, I missed a golden opportunity, 2 golden opportunities, and then that was a little bit disheartening. But I felt I was very tired. So this does inspire me a little bit to think, okay, hang on a second. I'm not the only person out there suffering from memory issues. I've got to say, and energy and time. I must be speaking for the good majority of people, right? How much time does one normally have to dedicate to chess? I certainly don't have 4 hours. So I've been thinking a lot about how I can simplify chess study into perhaps 15 to 30 minutes. And so this is why I was telling you in one of our earlier conversations, I bought myself a memory course. And I was like, okay, what can I learn from these memory techniques, and can I apply it to the chess world? And I'm, there's a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of ways to memorize long lists. I haven't gotten quite to how to memorize chess, but I'm thinking perhaps it can be transferable to techniques such as the endgame, like very basic checkmating patterns, maybe even, simplifying like rook and bishop against rook, these kind of mating techniques. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I haven't, as everything is like whirling in my mind at the minute. So I have that. And then another big thing that I started to get a bee in my head these last few months is that I was thinking that the aesthetic of chess is too utilitarian for me. It's too kind of black and white, too stark, and I wanted to soften it into something else. Now the problem is that I haven't really kind of come to the conclusion what that something else, but I have taken some certain inspiration by the fact that a lot of designers, they do use chess as a motif, like Christian Dior has done it, Chanel has done it, Burberry have some bags, which they call the night bag, the chess bag. So, and everyone is quick to use chess when they want to show sophistication. So I'm thinking, why can we not kind of do that? Why have it so stark? Why have the board in such a kind of really brutalist, utilitarian, simplified, which might not be appealing to everyone?
Well, maybe you should revisit that with James. Can be your round 2 go around. Chess players should make more money. Chess should be more popular, more classy, better looking. So instead of
no better, no. And those no better looking. I think we, as a community, I think we're good. But I just want to shake things up in my own little way and do something completely different. I mean, this would be a complete passion project, Jonathan. It wouldn't be something where I would do it for money or commercial gain. Like anyone who knows me is perhaps frustrated or maybe impressed by the fact that I care very little about money. So for me, anything that I want to do, I just want to do for enjoyment and for passion.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I mean, you should definitely go for it. Yeah, and if you find out a good chess routine that only takes 30 minutes, that would be, depending on how it works out, that could become very popular. Yeah.
Right. I think that's because, I mean, if we think about it, not all of us wants to be a world champion. Not all of us have that on our ambition. I mean, I think the majority of us just simply want to get better. And we want to be able to go to a tournament or play online or whatever it is we want to do, to trick our friends. We just want to play the best chess we can and have the most fun. And unfortunately, having the most fun usually, I mean, it shouldn't be the case, but usually is dependent on winning.
Mm-hmm. And even winning is easily outweighed by a loss. We were talking about positive and negative comments earlier, and I remember reading a blog, a chess player was saying, every time I win, I'm just like, you're performing at your level. That's what you should do. And every time you lose, it's like, you're stupid and all these things.
Right. I definitely suffered from that until I actually had to have words with myself. I had to say, no. Then why have you signed up for chess if the whole pain of losing is so severe, if you're going to talk to yourself in that kind of way, and you're not going to enjoy the small moments. So I really, really had to work on that mindset, actually. And it took me a while. And it does take a lot of effort to kind of say, no, you're going to enjoy a victory however it came about. It doesn't matter if it was dirty. It doesn't matter if you flagged someone. It doesn't matter if you're playing someone who you were expected to beat. You're going to enjoy the whole act of playing chess. And I think a lot of it actually comes in setting like goals that you can control. And one of my really, really good friends, Benjamin Porto, he has a website called Mindcreaser. He writes a lot about, yes, he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he really made me think a lot about the stories that we tell ourselves. Like I had a terrible tournament. Well, not terrible, but I had a
Feels
disappointing
terrible.
tournament. It did feel terrible. Where I lost a few games. It was the Battle of the Sexes, and I lost a few games, and I really felt like I'd let my team down. And he asked me after one of my losses, and he said, "What is the story that you're telling yourself? Don't try to suppress that feeling. Acknowledge it, confront it, live with it." I thought, whoa, that's deep. I've never done that before. So I was like, interesting. I mean, but this is what I was saying. When you bring in people from other communities, other sporting backgrounds, and they share with you nuggets of information, you can really think and go, aha, okay. Like going back to that course, that seminar that we held for the parents. I mean, one of the things that the tennis, well, I call her tennis because she works with young tennis players, but the sports psychologist, she said, you can ask the child, how do they want you as a chess parent to communicate with them after a loss? And I was thinking, hello? I have never ever thought about that. I've been a chess trainer quite a few years, and I have never thought to ask my students, how would you like me to communicate with you? What do you need to hear? Do you need me to do banter? Do you need me to make a few jokes? Do you need me to pick you up? And motivate you? Say some cheesy stuff? It doesn't matter, right? Just to kind of turn the onus, not from you, but from to the other person, was just a kind of completely eye-opening for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just to end on a more lighthearted question, you're from a big chess family. Your dad was a chess enthusiast and taught you and your siblings. Your brother was your main rival. You're married to a chess player. How does your family feel now that you're, if not a chess celebrity, a well-known chess figure?
Oh, they're very down to earth people. I think the only people who are maybe starstruck in my family is my parents. And then the rest of my siblings, they just don't. They just see me as Yovi, and they just simply, they're not afraid to, bring me back down to earth. I remember I was recording a birthday message from my father, and my younger sister sent it back saying, "No, you cannot record it in that tone of voice. That's your commentary voice." So, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was putting on a voice, but apparently I was. And they're cool people. They're very funny, and my nieces and nephews are really cool. Some of them play chess, and they're very proud of me, and they're like my biggest fans, and I love them to bits. And there's other nieces and nephews who look at me and go, "Hey, you seem to be well known." Is that because you're famous or something? So there's a mixture, and I would just say that they know that I play chess, and they know that I do commentary, and that's
You're just
about
the
it.
odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's always very interesting to hear these things, and I think these are some of the good things that it's important for us to pay as much attention to as we do to variations and opening lines. Maybe more important. So thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been a blast.